Hank Williams, a country music icon, dies tragically young.
He died of a massive coronary. His heart just exploded.
He leaves behind a child whose origins are a mystery and whose future is uncertain.
My first 3 years of my life were a complete blank.
It's a story of tragedy, conspiracy, and a battle for recognition.
The laws were clear. She was not entitled to inherit.
You can see me bristle right up when anybody says anything other than she got screwed.
At stake is a multi-million-dollar fortune and the legacy of a musical legend. New Year's Day, 1953, West Virginia. Hank Williams, a successful and wealthy country music star, a man who would become a musical legend, dies of heart failure in the back seat of his Cadillac. He's just 29 years old. Just 5 days later, a blonde, blue-eyed baby girl is born in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. Kathy, as she comes to be called, is given up for adoption. The first few years of her life are a mystery, but finally, at the age of 3, she is sent to live with the Dupre family in the Gulf Coast town of Mobile, Alabama.
I remember actually the day that we drove up in the car in Mobile and I was going to my new home. I actually have that memory, and I just thought that this was my new home, this was my new family.
Louise and Wayne Dupre have extremely high expectations for their new adopted daughter.
My adopted mother was a cross between Ava Gardner and Elizabeth Taylor, and she was all woman. I think what she wanted from me was a little girl that she could dress up. You know, we could go to church and go to town and be this little child that stepped out of a magazine. And I was everything but. As far as putting on a frilly dress or whatever, I mean, I would much rather be in the blue jeans and the tennis shoes than I would be, with bows in my hair.
As Kathy grows older, Louise becomes increasingly distant.
She was not a person to give you any kind of physical love, as in a hug or a kiss or, Louise gave little or no praise. To me, she made it that you're just average, you're not anything special.
Despite Louise's indifference, Kathy finds her own passions in life. In particular, music.
I heard someone play the guitar and sing, and it absolutely stopped me in my tracks. I asked Louise, I told her I wanted to learn to play the guitar. I remember that incident because it was like she just stopped dead and turned around and looked at me, and she asked me why, and I said, because I heard someone and I just love it.
Friends of the family take pity on Kathy. Anita Toole tries to provide some missing motherly love.
She got so close that anytime we went on a vacation, she went with us. And Louise was always willing and glad, really, to sort of get her out of her hair, as she put it. I love Kathy like my own child. I call her my other daughter, and that's what she calls herself to me, my other daughter. I just feel so bad that her childhood was without love.
The family's emotional problems are complicated by drugs, alcohol, and depression.
Alcohol was a problem for both of my adopted parents, but my adopted mother had not only alcoholic problems, she had prescription drug problems, and she had mental problems.
One time she got so depressed that she took an overdose of pills, and it was on purpose. She did take all the pills that she could possibly swallow, and of course it scared them. They thought she had fainted or hit herself or fallen, and right away they called me. I politely mixed up a glass of Tide detergent water, and I poured it down and made her drink it until she spit up. But I don't think she ever got over the depression.
A dysfunctional family life makes Kathy increasingly curious about the circumstances of her adoption.
There were no pictures of me before the age of 3, and in fact, when you open the family Dupree photo album, there I am, 3 years old, sitting there with this deer in the headlight look on my face, and it says first night at home. I never even saw myself as an infant. My first 3 years of my life were a complete blank. I didn't know, I had no idea what I looked like, who I was, or where I came from. The Duprees had no answers for any question that I asked them. And if they did, they never gave it to me.
Despite her parents' silence on the subject, Kathy keeps searching for the smallest clues.
I do remember one incident. For some reason, I was digging around in a piece of furniture, and there was a little picture frame, and there was this person that I didn't recognize. And I asked Louise about it, and she got pretty upset with me, and she scolded me heavily and used a few choice words to tell me that I shouldn't be looking in places that I shouldn't be looking, and that it was really none of my business.
Kathy, believing the mystery will never be solved, escapes the Dupre household and heads off to college.
When I left at 18, I do believe that things changed completely in Mobile. I mean, I felt now as I look back that they had done their duty.
Around her 21st birthday, Louise and Wayne arrive for a rare visit.
I went to the hotel room with them, and then my adopted dad said he was going to take a walk, and so I kind of knew something was up. We had this conversation, and it was at that time that she mentioned the name Hank Williams to me and said that he might be my father. That was the first time that I had heard the name Hank Williams in any type of relationship that had to do with me.
Hank Williams had been a country music star and one of Alabama's favorite sons. The suggestion that he might be Kathy's father is shocking.
I don't think at first everything, it didn't I heard what was being said. And then the name and everything, but it was like taking you're in a warm shower and all of a sudden the water just goes blasted cold on you. Why? Because all of a sudden there's a name thrown out. But in that same conversation, in that same instance, I was also told too that there wasn't any proof and that everything had been decided and that there was nothing that I could do.
For Anita, the revelation makes perfect sense.
Everything fell into place with me, her singing, her guitar playing, her character, and her appearance.
Louise also informs Kathy that she's due to inherit $2,000.
I was to go to Montgomery, Alabama, to the courthouse and pick up a check, some money. I walked in, they asked for my driver's license. I showed it to him, and the man handed me an envelope.
But nobody will tell Kathy the source of the mysterious inheritance.
He didn't give me any explanation. There wasn't anyone else there at the courthouse. There wasn't any press. There weren't any lawyers. I mean, there might have been somebody hiding there, watching, but if there was, I didn't see them.
Kathy settles down and gets married. With nothing more than an unexplained check and an unfounded rumor, she puts Hank Williams out of her mind.
Wanted to graduate. I was getting a job. Probably if the name Hank Williams ever crossed my path or I heard a song or something like that, that I probably listened a little bit more intently than I did, before.
But 6 years later, Hank Williams' name would come up again, unexpectedly.
The changing point in my life on it was when my adopted dad called me. He asked me specifically, would I like to try and find out if this man, Hank Williams, if I was related to him and he was my father. I said, well, yes, I would.
Defying his wife's wishes, Wayne vows to help Kathy discover her true identity.
He knew he had cancer. That was probably the reason that he made that decision. And so he said, what little information I have in paper, I'll send you.
Wayne reveals that he and Louise had actually known about the Hank Williams rumors since 1967, when Kathy was 14. During a legal dispute within the Williams family, the existence of a second child had been mentioned in court.
In the package that I received, there was an old newspaper clipping, and in it it said, possible child complicates trial. And I was that possible child. When I saw that, then I thought, well, there might be something to this.
If Kathy was that child, there was also the possibility she stood to inherit a multi-million-dollar music fortune. But she's about to discover that her adoptive parents aren't the only ones keeping her origins shrouded in a conspiracy of silence.
That was my life sitting in front of that woman, and there wasn't anything I could do about it.
At 27, Kathy Dupre's adoptive father, Wayne, finally agrees to help her prove that she may be the daughter of iconic country superstar Hank Williams, who died 5 days before she was born. Before the age of 3, her life is a blank, but papers Wayne gives her contain some intriguing clues.
I had worn this little wool cape when I came to the Dupre's. In the cape, in the lining of the cape, had been a little letter that had been hidden.
The letter is written by her first foster mother, meant to introduce Kathy to her new family. It also mentions her favorite food, ketchup.
As an adult, to start to get these little pearls, like liking ketchup as a 2-year-old. I mean, those were such little treasures to me.
Most importantly, the note provides a name, Mrs. J. Cook, Pine Level, Alabama. Finally, Kathy is in possession of a concrete piece of her past. It's not long before she tracks down the Cook family in a small town north of Montgomery.
When I walked back into the Cooks, to Mama and Daddy Cook's lives, and that whole Cook family, it was at their 50th wedding anniversary. And then from that moment, they welcomed me back into their family.
The Cook family took Kathy in temporarily when she was just 2 years old. Perhaps they have information about her natural parents.
I did ask them, and they were all very vague because they had heard rumors, but there wasn't anything or any concrete or anything that they had or any information or any documentation that proved anything. But I do remember that Jewel there was a sheet music on the piano. I recognized the picture, and she said that I went over there and I started pointing at it and everything, and I was real excited.
It's disappointing. Kathy needs more than stories and rumor. She heads to Montgomery, Alabama, the town where Hank Williams spent most of his short life. She knows that if her adoption files still exist, they will be held by the Department of Pensions and Security.
I made an appointment to meet with a social worker. What my plan was I was going to sit down and try and make her believe that I knew everything already, so, you can just go ahead and tell me,
But the rules are clear. The names of birth parents cannot be revealed.
What she read me was like a one-page document, and it was real vague. It was like, your father travels. He's tall. No names, no specifics, no anything like that. It was almost as bad as your father's a male and your mother's a female. Those papers, I believed, on her desk at that time, which she was not sharing with me, had all the answers to my questions. That was my life sitting in front of that woman, and there wasn't anything I could do about it.
For Kathy, it was another dead end.
I sat there thinking, what would happen, and would I go to jail if I just hit her? And grabbed that file and ran for everything I was worth.
Realizing she needs to find the answers elsewhere, Kathy digs deeper into the life of the man she believes to be her father.
To Canaan's land, I'm on my way where the soul never dies.
Hank Williams died young, leaving an indelible impression of a shining musical talent and a loving family man.
I went to a movie that was called Your Cheating Heart, and it said, this is the true story of Hank Williams. In that movie, it portrayed that he was married to Audrey and they had one son, and I believed that.
In fact, Hank's personal life was a mess. His marriage to Audrey had fallen apart, and in May 1952, they divorced, just weeks after Kathy was conceived. Hank was drinking heavily and had become dependent on prescription painkillers, taken to relieve chronic back pain. In October of that year, Hank married a second time to a glamorous 19-year-old Louisiana girl, Billie Jean Jones. Unbeknownst to him, he was just weeks away from death. In newspaper accounts of Hank's death, Kathy finds the name of Hank's driver, the last man to see him alive. Perhaps Charles Carr can shed some light on the circumstances of her birth.
As luck would have it, I just picked up the phone book, and he was listed in the phone book. And I called, and he took my call.
On New Year's Day, 1953, 17-year-old Charles Carr was given the job of driving Hank to a show.
We had a show to do in Canton, Ohio, New Year's Eve, but the weather was bad, and we left here later than we had anticipated.
Charles, a friend of the Williams family, was well acquainted with his famous employer.
Well, I knew him when he was down. I knew him when he was up. He was in a good spirit. He was looking forward to the show. This was one of the starts of the comeback since he had the back operation.
But at some point during the drive through West Virginia, perhaps brought on by a drug overdose, Hank suffered a heart attack.
Hank was laying in the back, covered with his overcoat and a blanket. But I looked back and I saw the blanket had slid from Hank's body, and he had his hand up like this. I knew something was wrong. I stopped into a service station there, and the gentleman said, but Oak Hill General is 6 miles from here. 2 interns came out and took Hank out of the car. And they said he's dead. And I said, well, you can't do anything for him? And he said, no, he's just dead. He died of a massive coronary. His heart just exploded. And when they performed the autopsy, well, this showed up.
Kathy presses Charles for information, and what he reveals will blow her investigation wide open.
She just said, I'm trying to find out some things about Hank Williams might be my father. And I just told her that I can tell you that, I had met your mother.
And he started talking, and he mentioned the name Bobby Jett.
Carr is convinced that Kathy's mother was neither one of Hank's wives, but a third woman, Bobby Jett, a 30-year-old dancer from Nashville. Hank did not attempt to hide the relationship.
Hank introduced me to her the first time, and her coming on the porch while we were there, and it wasn't not any big thing there one way or the other.
So I started trying to call every Jett and trying to run that angle down, because I believed that if I could find my natural mother, she would be able to tell me what happened.
Finally, After calling almost every Jett in Nashville, Tennessee, she finds a man who turns out to be Bobby Jett's uncle.
The head of the family was a gentleman by the name of Willard Jett. I pretended to be a friend of Bobby's, where I thought if I assumed this identity or whatever, I could blindside him and maybe somebody might share some information. Well, the minute I said that, he knew exactly who I was. He nailed me on the phone.
Willard gives Kathy the news she's been waiting for. Confirmation that Bobby Jett is her mother.
The Jetts said that she did have this child and that she had it in Montgomery. I mean, the information tracked, so I believe that she was my natural mother.
But then Willard delivers some bad news.
He told me that she was dead, and of course I didn't believe it. It was a very emotional call. I was invited to come to Nashville and meet some of the Jetts and learn about her and her family.
After giving birth to Kathy, Bobby Jett had later married and had several more children. But she died young, at the age of 51.
When I found out that she was dead, I was mad. Okay, I was so mad because I had counted so much on if I found her that I could have her give me answers to the questions. I asked, did they have any information? And of course, they had no information or no proof that Hank Williams was the father. But at least I had the mother.
It's a grave disappointment, but Charles Carr has another suggestion for Kathy.
If I wanted to know more information, there was this cousin. He told me her name was Marie, he couldn't remember her last name, and that she had a birth defect on her face.
But Charles has not seen Hank's cousin Marie in years. He has no address or any other details. Tracking her down seems impossible until chance intervenes in a remarkable way.
As luck would have it, she gave an interview, and I opened the newspaper, and there's a picture of Marie, and it had to be this person that Charles was talking about.
This extraordinary coincidence leads to Marie's full name, which leads Kathy to an address in Montgomery.
I was trying to come on as strong as possible. You know, if she knew who I was, I figured I'd get a door slammed in my face. So I figured if I told her that I was a reporter, she would be receptive.
But the subterfuge is a waste of time. Marie recognizes her instantly.
When she let me in, she said, let me see your arm. I held out my left arm, and she goes, no, the other arm. I have a scar, a distinctive scar on my right arm. I never knew how I received it. And when she saw the scar, she said, oh my God, my baby's come home.
The first 2 years of Kathy's life are finally revealed. Marie lived with Hank Williams' mother, Lillian, in Montgomery. She and Lillian looked after Kathy for the first 2 years of her life. Kathy is now convinced that Lillian is her grandmother.
I was that Kathy that had lived at the boarding house that she had taken care of.
Marie also describes how Kathy fell and cut her arm on shards of broken glass.
Marie told me how I received the scar. She also told me that my grandmother took me to the hospital in a cab, and I held on to her for my life.
Sadly, Hank's mother Lillian had a serious heart condition. She died of heart failure when Kathy was just 2 years old, and the infant was duly handed over to the state of Alabama.
My life changed with the stroke of a pen. Some judge signed an order. Some social worker made a placement, signed a document. You know, I just became part of the system.
But if Kathy believes that Marie can confirm the identity of her natural parents, she is soon disappointed.
Marie was not going to give me any information whatsoever. She was very closed-mouthed, and she had a phrase that she used, I wasn't at the heaven and I wasn't at the getting, so I wouldn't know. At no time did she ever tell me that, yes, Hank Williams was my father. She never admitted that at any time.
Perhaps out of loyalty to the Williams family, Marie also refuses to talk about Bobby Jett, Kathy's mother. The only memento Kathy has is a photograph sent by Bobby's uncle.
It took me a little time to have the courage to actually open that envelope and pull that picture out to see what my mother looked like.
Frustrated at every turn, Kathy will have to search for answers elsewhere. A search that takes her directly into the tortured past of Hank Williams' tragic life and reveals a crucial clue to her true identity.
That document was the smoking gun in this case, just like you see in the movies.
Kathy Dupre believes she is the illegitimate daughter of country star Hank Williams. But neither Hank nor her natural mother, Bobby Jett, are alive to tell the story. And 4 years later, she's hit a brick wall.
I was open to anything. And at that point, I had pretty much resigned myself. I was not going to ever get any answers.
She needs help, and it comes in the form of an investigative attorney from Washington, D.C., Keith Atkinson.
In walks this perky young girl in a dress and high heels, shows up in a little Spitfire, and I was instantly taken with her sincerity. A good lawyer that takes a case may well spend months finding out whether his client's telling the truth or not, and that was not her case.
But Keith is not optimistic about reopening the Hank Williams estate.
I, like everyone else, thought that Hank Williams had been dead for some decades, and the estate had been distributed in accordance with general probate law, and never thought beyond that. It wasn't until I got into it that caused me to realize that we had engaged in a rather serious undertaking that then became a labor of love.
He begins by searching for clues amongst the papers from Kathy's adoptive father.
The one that caught my immediate attention was from the Montgomery Advertiser. A copyright trial complicated by possible existence of another child or some such thing. Well, that caused me to go through the mental process saying, well, if there's a trial, there's paper, you know, there's something you can get your teeth in.
Next, he starts digging into the files in the archives of the Montgomery courthouse.
There was a whole basement full of documents because with the annual reportings and various correspondence, but there was the generation of vast amounts of paper.
And it's not long before he uncovers information about the 1960s copyright trial, which Kathy had learned about from her adoptive parents. In 1967, when Kathy was just 14, the Williams family was embroiled in a legal dispute over the copyright of Hank's music.
Hank Williams' catalog is among the most valuable catalogs today, and it involves millions of dollars. So this was not pocket change.
18-year-old Hank Jr. inherited his father's copyrights, which were periodically renewed with the record company. His mother, Audrey, Hank's ex-wife, believed the renewal of the rights had been sold off too cheaply.
It should have been a lot more money. And she brought in experts to say, oh, it should have been 3 times that, because the catalog and its value.
Audrey sued Hank's sister, Irene, who had made the deal with the record company. To defend the lawsuit, Irene's lawyers mentioned the possible existence of another heir to the Hank Williams estate.
Greed outweighed wisdom and judgment, and that's when they decided, but the reason that we paid so little is because there's another child. And Junior doesn't own 100% of the renewal rights. They were saying there's a cloud on the title, and that's why we're not paying full value for it.
The tactic misfired. The possibility of an illegitimate child was briefly reported in a newspaper article. And 150 miles away in Mobile, Alabama, the Dupreys hear rumors that their adoptive daughter may be the child in question. And the article also mentions some kind of paternity contract signed by Hank himself.
That document was the smoking gun in this case. Just like you see in the movies, there was a particular document around which a web was spun.
The document had been ordered sealed by the court. Keith somehow finds a way to get a copy.
Had some very strong friends in Alabama, in the legal profession and elsewhere. It's really not relevant where I got it. The judge was only interested in not where I got it, but whether it was authentic.
This was the news that Kathy had been waiting for 10 years.
He called me and he said, would you like to know once and for all that you are the daughter of Hank Williams and that you were wanted? And he read from that contract to me. And it said, the father, Hank Williams, will take the child. And of course, you know, I mean, I was absolutely blown away.
This agreement, signed by Hank and Bobby Jett, outlines the plan for Kathy's upbringing. Hank's mother, Lillian, was to take custody of the child for the first 2 years, with Hank paying all medical expenses. After 2 years, custody of Kathy would be shared between Hank and Bobby Jett. But Hank did not live to see that come to fruition.
Never did I ever think that I would have a contract that my father entered into with my mother that said, I am the father and I want you. Other than his coming back from heaven to stand in front of me and tell me this personally, there was a document in existence in which he said, not only am I the father, I want my baby.
It was prepared by a lawyer. It was notarized. It was signed. It wasn't some little scribbled note somewhere. In it, Hank Williams is referred to as the father 3 times.
To me, it was unbelievable because I had a mother and a father that sat down and put the unborn child's concerns first and not theirs. And so in my heart, I believe that both of them truly, truly loved their unborn child.
This document will be the first crack in the wall of silence surrounding Kathy's origins and the key to a multi-million-dollar legal challenge. But in order to prove their case, they'll have to take some unorthodox measures.
The lady said to me, now y'all aren't taping this, are you? And
She was scared to death. She'd never get inside. What have I gotten involved in? What are we doing?
As Kathy Duprey gets closer to proving that country star Hank Williams is her natural father, she wants to know more about the first 2 years of her life. She and her lawyer, Keith Atkinson, are determined to get their hands on her adoption records. This time, Keith persuades the caseworker to bend the rules.
It was arranged that they would read us the records. They asked, what do you want us to read? Of course, she said, well, all of it. And, we're looking at about 4 inches of records.
Kathy and Keith come back the next day, prepared.
we couldn't make any kind of copies or anything. And so Keith and I went armed. And the lady said to me, Now, y'all aren't taping this, are you? And of course we said, oh, no, ma'am. Well, when that 60-minute tape ended and that click went off, it was the loudest click.
I think she thought I had a medical condition because I kept going to the men's room to swap the tapes out. She'd never get died. What have I gotten involved in? What are we doing?
The records vividly describe the events surrounding Kathy's adoption. The very first entry is just 3 weeks after Kathy's birth. Hank has been dead for 4 weeks. Lillian, Hank's mother, visits the office. She explains that she wishes to adopt her new granddaughter.
My grandmother goes and she tries to present her case to the state of Alabama, and in it she says, I have to have this child. It's all I have left of my dead son. She was 56, heart condition, single, and was not a real candidate unless she was blood related.
Eventually, the caseworker agreed to the adoption. Lillian could adopt Kathy, so long as Bobby Jett agreed to it and confirmed that Hank was the father.
There was a handwritten note in the adoption files that Bobby had written in which she states that Hank Williams is the father of her child. That meant a lot. She was the one I was looking for. She was the one I wanted to tell me who the father was.
But Kathy also has to face the fact that Bobby did not want to keep her baby.
I would probably think that she didn't have the wherewithal to manage a child to where you've got a grandmother saying, look, you know, I will take care of the child, you can visit the child, you know, whatever. I also think, I don't know that she actually ever really wanted to be tied down as like in a wife or a mother or whatever.
Things are starting to look up, and as the investigation gains momentum, Kathy, now separated from her first husband, is spending more time with her attorney, Keith Atkinson.
It's one thing to have a client that for hire, and I'm not saying I didn't pay my legal bill, but it's another thing to have your lawyer become your champion and do it because he believes in you and he is doing it for love.
I spent years investigating my soon-to-be wife before I married her and knew probably more about her than she did. But she was the most captivating, delightful young lady I ever met. And we got married, I guess, in 1986 when we were winning nothing.
I fell in love with Keith, and he became my knight in a three-piece suit. And there were times where we thought and felt like it's just the two of us against the world.
In honor of her father and her mother, Bobby Jett, Kathy changes her name to Jett Williams. In 1986, Jett and her husband lawyer, Keith Atkinson, prepare to go to war. Keith makes an announcement on her behalf that she is Hank's daughter, and she has decided to sue the state of Alabama to get access to her full adoption records. It provokes an immediate response.
It was obvious to them that trouble was right at the front door.
Hank Jr. and the music company are represented by a team of lawyers, including Montgomery attorney Sterling Culpepper.
We got wind of the fact that Jett Williams was looking at records at the courthouse in Montgomery, that she filed a petition to unseal probate court documents pertaining to her adoption. We realized that there would probably be more litigation on the subject of her entitlement to the royalties from Hank Sr.'s estate.
Judge Mark Kennedy presides over the court proceedings in Alabama. The first issue before him is Jett, Hank's biological daughter.
We all have to resemble someone. It was obviously noted, I would assume, just because we're all human, that she bore a striking resemblance to the photographs of her father.
But physical resemblance cannot be proven in court. Keith calls witnesses, including a friend of Hank's, Bob Helton, who describes visiting Hank and a pregnant Bobby Jett.
When they were at Lake Martin in August of '52, and Bob Helton testified that my grandmother said, "Isn't that Bobby?" And my dad says, "Yes." "Is she pregnant?" My father said, "Yes, I'm the father, I'm keeping the baby, and that's all you need to know."
Judge Kennedy looked at the other side collectively and said, "Do you have any evidence?" And they said, "No, we have no evidence."
I found that there was a preponderance of the evidence that established that she was in fact the natural-born daughter of Hank Williams, Sr.
But for Hank Jr. and his lawyers, that is not the issue at stake.
The issue was whether she, as an adopted child, was entitled to a share of the estate of her natural father. So the law at the time was that an adopted child could not inherit from the estate of her natural father.
And Judge Kennedy rules that Jett will not inherit a cent.
I believe they had a fair hearing, a fair trial, and I believe that my judgment was justified under the evidence that I heard.
The laws were clear. She was not entitled to inherit. The court ruled for Hank Jr. We were 100% certain under the laws of Alabama as they were then and are now that we had won.
But Keith Atkinson is not so certain. He argues that the estate should be reopened because the Williams family engaged in a legal conspiracy to keep Jett from her share. The litigation becomes lengthy, expensive, and hard-fought.
I had many depositions that I think one lasted for over 12 hours. There was a strategy when you're fighting big business that they're going to wear you down mentally, physically, and financially.
What they didn't understand is I was trained by the best, and I didn't wear down. I just got more angry with it. Now, why would grown men go round robin, pounding the fire out of somebody that didn't do anything to anybody? It just seemed that they were going an extra mile to hurt an innocent person. And that sounds like, Pollyanna stuff. No, I mean, I'm used to blood and guts and let's, rock and roll. But at the same time, that, there's just a little bit over the edge sometimes.
As the case snowballs, everyone involved in Jett's life so far is called to give evidence, including her adoptive mother, Louise, who is now 65 years old and terminally ill.
I had made a relationship with my adopted mother, and she had had cancer, and she gave me a picture of her when she was young, and she told me that she wanted me to remember her the way she used to look and not the way she looked, and she had actually signed the card, "Love, Mama."
But Louise, always full of surprises, has a final surprise in store for Jett. She is disinherited from her adoptive family.
I guess my mouth dropped because I was floored.
Kathy Dupre, now Jett Williams, is fighting to be recognized as an heir to the valuable Hank Williams estate. She reconciles with her adoptive mother, Louise, who testifies on her behalf. But when Louise dies of cancer several months later, Jett discovers that she has been written out of the Dupre will.
I guess my mouth dropped because I was floored. I had always believed and had always been told by the Dupres that I would inherit. And so to be totally disinherited, and that also includes, mementos, pictures, and things like that. It was everything.
Jett believes that medication and mental illness made Louise increasingly vulnerable to outside influence.
I believe that my aunt and her son manipulated my adopted mother and had her change her will. And in fact, the last will she signed was she couldn't get out of the car to make it into the attorney's office. I believe that they manipulated her, had her sign those wills, and completely disinherit me 100%. I call it the Hank Williams thing, hung like a cloud over my relationship with my adopted parents throughout my life. The biggest betrayal, I think, was that my adoptive father and I did it together without her. That he contacted me and said, let's, not tell her.
Faced with being disinherited on all sides, Jett's husband and lawyer, Keith Atkinson, is trying to reopen the Hank Williams estate by proving that Jett has been systematically and dishonestly excluded. When Lillian died, Jett was a potential heir to Hank's valuable musical legacy, and therefore she was a threat, especially to Audrey, Hank's first wife, and her son, Hank Jr.
He had two basic fundamental problems. One, she wanted to be the bereaved widow, and she had a problem because Hank had married somebody else, not Jett's mother. She'd married this Billie Jean gal from Shreveport. And then Audrey wanted Hank Jr. to be the heir to the throne. Well, that was complicated by the fact there's this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl living in the boarding house, and Miss Lillian ain't budging.
Hank's sister, Irene, had promised to take care of the baby if anything happened to Lillian, Hank and Irene's mother.
If anything was to happen to her mother, that I would be taken care of. Well, she was put to the test because her mother did die, and she did not stand by what she told the state. In fact, she called them and said, I want to get rid of this child, and not only do I want to get rid of her, I want her placed somewhere, and everything, record, everything known about her be completely buried.
You see Irene in these adoption records talking about it'd be better for the child if we get it away. Well, yeah, sure, better for them. Keep the money. To this day, you can see me bristle right up when anybody says anything other than she got screwed, and we're sorry we did it,
The day Jett is born, and 5 days after Hank's untimely death, the family lawyer draws up a list of Hank's potential heirs. Jett is excluded. 2 years later, the family gives her up for adoption, leaving her just $2,000 set aside from Lillian's will.
The $2,000 was an amount that was called a homestead set aside for her. That would be the amount that they determined it would take to raise her from age 2 to age 18, if you can imagine that. Was it a conspiracy? Oh yes, it was a conspiracy. Two people gathering together with a common goal that is illegal in nature, immoral from a whole host of perspectives. That's a conspiracy.
Finally, on July 5th, 1989, Jett and Keith hear the news. The Alabama Supreme Court has made their decision.
We beeline it back to Montgomery and go over to the Supreme Court building. And he said, go in there and ask them for a copy of it. And so they gave me a physical copy of the order, and we sat out there and read it.
And the Supreme Court of Alabama ruled in a split decision that there was fraud, and therefore the general law didn't apply to her because of these unusual and unique circumstances. And she was therefore entitled to inherit from her natural father's estate.
How could it be that Judge Maddox ruled what he did? I don't know. I have never seen that before or since. The Supreme Court did not have authority to do what it did, in my judgment. They didn't have jurisdiction. They acted contrary to the rules of law and procedure by doing this.
The courts made the ruling and set the record straight. And I do believe that my father said, that document that I signed, that baby that I wanted, finally, the record set straight and my wishes were carried out.
After a 6-year legal battle, the estate is reopened, making Jett Williams a legal heir. She now shares in the proceeds from Hank's copyright royalties worth millions of dollars. Jett and Keith Atkinson are happily married. Having followed in her father's footsteps, Jett has now become a country music singer. She is reconciled with her half-brother, Hank Jr. Together, they act as custodians of the Hank Williams estate.
I think she's come a full circle. I think she's a happy person now. She has the happiness that she didn't have as a child, and she has the love that she didn't have as a child, and she has her true friends that she's had from childhood.
When it comes down to the bottom line, is I know who I am, I know that I was wanted, and I found the man that I loved. And so I have the answers to my questions. Most of them I wanted to hear. And I consider myself extremely lucky.